Good morning and welcome to another episode of Wellbeing Wednesday. And this morning I'm with Sian Pages from Not Just Travel. Fantastic travel agency, personal assistance for all your travel needs. But funnily enough, we are going to talk about podiatry, aren't we?
Yes, we are.
So in a previous incarnation, you were a podiatrist with the NHS.
That's right.
Tell me a little bit about how that went. I do not want to know about people's feet, okay?
You wouldn't want to know. It's really gory.
I bet, and I don't do feet at the best of times. So tell me a little bit about your experience during that time.
So I went to university later in life because I didn't know what I wanted to do. And by the time I kind of realised I'd already left home, I'd already done a number of jobs. So I worked to put myself through uni to do the podiatry degree. And that meant working in hospitals, doing like night shifts as a senior care assistant to pay my way, if you like. So I did that for about 5 years because I did a foundation degree first, and then I did a podiatry degree in 2 years. So when I started it, I loved it. I loved the job. I was a diabetic foot specialist. I was working with a caseload of clients who really needed a lot of help.
Yeah.
And I did that for 10 years, loved it for the first 5, liked it for the last sort of 5, hated it for the last 2. And I got to a point where I was just doing way too much. I'd taken on so much, and every year when the new governments kind of imposed their budgets, we'd get less resources, but we'd be expected to do more. So I was doing things like giving my personal phone number to patients, like my mobile number, and saying, look, if anything happens, give me a call. I was taking my work home with me, so I'd get to work at 8 o'clock. I'd finish at 5:30, but I would still work till 7, bring loads of stuff home. And then my son was born, and I felt like I needed to do things differently, because by this point I was massively overweight because I wasn't eating, I wasn't having breaks. I was only eating what was brought in by patients, which is cakes and chocolate and biscuits.
Yeah.
So that was my diet basically, and I'd stress eat as well, comfort eat, stress eat. I wasn't sleeping. My husband and I were arguing a lot because he could see how stressed I was, and I wasn't talking to him about it. And it took going on holiday, our first holiday in like 3 years, to make the decision that I needed to change. I needed to leave, because I'd woken up at 2 o'clock in the morning to a patient calling me saying I need help. I'd spent 2 hours getting them admitted to the hospital, to go into work the next day and have no one say to me, you know what, that was great, thank you, take half an hour extra for lunch or go home early. And I thought, you know what, this is enough. I've given too much and I need to claw it back now. So I made the really hard decision to leave. I didn't want to leave because I'd worked really hard to get there. But I sat down and looked at transferable skills that I might have, and it was really a patient-focused job, and a lot of those skills I developed doing the job I could pass into helping customers, and travel was something that I loved and I was passionate about already. So it naturally lent itself to a career change.
I mean, it feels to me that it's a classic case of burnout.
Massively.
And it's something that's in the media a lot at the moment, people talking about burnout and overwork. So at any point, did you have an option to say, well, enough, I can't take on anymore?
I said it all the time. I used to say it regularly, at staff meetings, at team meetings, by email. But the problem was we'd go through so many staff changes, and that included managers, that I guess there was never the chance to kind of consistently have that conversation. You'd have it with one, something would change, you'd have to have it again, something would change. And there was also this culture of actually not being the one person who would put the head on the chopping block to make waves, to complain. So we'd all very much work through our lunch breaks, because we'd have patients booked into our lunch breaks. And those that said, you know what, this is my time, I don't want that, would be really kind of made to feel terrible about it, and there was this whole culture around doing that. And I didn't necessarily feel at the point where I was confident enough to say, I'm not doing that anymore, until I tried. And then, as I say, it was kind of knocked back a lot. So I just felt that I had no option but to leave.
It's funny, I completely understand what you're saying about that. When I gave birth to my first child, I went back to work. And suddenly I went from somebody that worked kind of like long hours, wasn't worried about what time I left to go home, as long as the work was done, it was all good. And to working very structured hours. I would start earlier in the morning and I would finish about 4:30 in the afternoon. And some of my colleagues would literally be stood there. I think I've told this story before, would literally be stood there looking at their watches, kind of like, oh, are you going home already?
Yeah.
But nobody ever said to them, oh, are you going out for another cigarette break?
Yeah.
And kind of like 5-minute cigarette breaks. It all had, so yeah, I completely understand. And I think that as employees everywhere, it's something we need to do more. We actually need to stand up more and say, do you know what, that's not right, and I don't want to do that.
Yeah, definitely. I think the problem with places like the NHS is typically they'll do all the tick box exercises. So they'll do like the Myers-Briggs type indicators for the whole team. They'll bring the external corporate consultants in to look at why we're not doing something right. But they never really implement anything, and there's never any real change that's enacted. So it's all kind of done for the sake of, how it looks, never for the sake of the team. Exactly. So yeah, I mean, it is what it is. I felt very resentful about leaving that job for quite a while, but actually it was the best thing I could have ever have done, to be honest.
So let's fast forward to not just travel.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit now what you do, why you're special, because we all know you're special, and what you bring to people's holidays.
So, I mean, holidays for me they're huge. I know the value of a holiday because a holiday is where I made my most important life-changing decision of leaving my career and starting something from scratch. So I know that actually those are the moments where you connect with your family the most, where you connect with the wider world, where you meet people. I met my husband thanks to travel because he's French. That would never have happened. Many great things in my life have happened because of travel. So I see the benefits of doing it. And the passion that I have for travel, which is immense, it's everywhere in my house, it's in my whole life, I channel into my clients' bookings because it's a real personal thing for me. I want them to have everything they want to have on holiday. I want them to have the service that I'm able to give them, which is, phoning them, checking them into the flights if they want, private transfers. I'll recommend restaurants, I'll book excursions for them. You name it, I can do it for them. So, you can go and book things on the high street, but you won't get the same level of service. And when things go wrong, as they have done, I'm the one that takes the heat, if you like. So I'll give you an example. I had a client who went to Jamaica, or was going to Jamaica in October, and his booking got cancelled, or it didn't get cancelled, but it was about to. We had to move things around, but the supplier wasn't allowing phone calls to do that. So it all had to be done by email or a rep. It took me 13 hours and about 27 emails. And if the client then had to do it himself, he would have been pulling his hair out because it was monstrous how they were handling it. But we got it done, and now they're going to Barbados in October, which is great.
Love
so it's things like that that make me feel really excited because I know that I'm able to do that for people. That's
absolutely superb. Thank you so much for joining me today. And when I finally decide to book my traveling holiday across India, where I want to learn to cook in all the different regions, I know where to come.
Absolutely. I've got some great cooking tours I can talk to you about.
Oh, fantastic. Sian, it's been a delight. Thank you for your time. Thank you for sharing your story. And check out the links, ladies and gentlemen, and you'll find out how to get in touch with Sian there. Have a great day.